I've often wondered why Disney don't use Mickey pattern fireworks shells in their nighttime displays. It would seem an obvious thing for them to do, so I set out to investigate. First of all, a quick reminder on what a patterned shell is. Most firework aerial shell bursts are naturally spherical in shape, exploding outwards equally in all directions. A shaped shell, however, is an aerial burst where stars are forced out into different patterns in the sky. Common examples you may have seen include smiley faces, hearts, spirals, and cubes. So do Disney use any shaped shells at all in any of their shows? Well, the answer is yes. Here are a couple of examples from Happily Ever After of spirals, and bells. But why don't Disney use any Mickey-shaped shells? After all, the Mickey pattern is synonymous with Disney. Well, let's consider some of the drawbacks of shaped or patterned shells. First of all, there's no real way to control their orientation when they burst in the sky. Now for 3D patterns like cubes, this is less of an issue. But for 2D shapes, these can often burst in the wrong orientation, appearing upside down, squashed, stretched, or even just as a line, ruining the intended effect. Incidentally, that's why whenever you see a firework display which uses shaped shells, they'll usually be fired in multiple quantities. That way there's more chance of at least one of them appearing correctly orientated. Surely these are challenges that Disney could overcome though. Well, they've tried. Disney actually did commission a Mickey pattern shell for Disney's Celebrate America show. This 15-minute fireworks show first premiered at Walt Disney World in 2008. It's been shown in lieu of the regular fireworks shows on both July the 3rd and 4th every year since the Magic Kingdom, with variations at Disneyland, and also from 2011 at Disney California Adventure 2. But if you've seen this fireworks show in any of the parks, you won't have seen any Mickey shells. Why not? Well, after the first rehearsal for the show, back in 2008, the show director didn't like them, so they were pulled from the show, and they've never been used in a regular Disney fireworks show since. So what did Disney do with all these specially commissioned Mickey shells that they'd had manufactured? Well, later on in 2008, the American Pyrotechnic Association held their annual conference at Walt Disney World. 2008 was the association's 60th anniversary, and so to celebrate, Walt Disney Entertainment put on their biggest ever fireworks show, containing an estimated 4,500 fireworks. The one-off show was titled Welcome to Our World and took place just after 9:30 p.m. on Saturday, September the 20th, 2008. Many who witnessed this show assert that it was, and indeed still is, the greatest fireworks show Disney has ever staged. It utilised firing locations along the beach near the Contemporary Resort, as well as the Castaway Cay Island in the Seven Seas Lagoon. I actually did a guide to all 14 firework firing sites that Disney use around the Magic Kingdom, and you'll find a link to that video in the description. Anyway, the designer of this special one-off fireworks show decided that Disney's surplus Mickey shells would fit in, so they were repurposed. Footage of this one-off show is rare, but here are the Mickey shells in action at various points during the 15-minute fireworks spectacular. This is the only time Mickey-shaped shells have appeared at Disney. So why didn't Disney like them enough to use them for their original intended purpose during their annual Celebrate America show at the US parks? Indeed, for that matter, why haven't Disney used them since in any of their other nighttime fireworks at the various parks? Well, there could be a number of reasons. We've already touched on how difficult it is for shaped shells to burst with the correct orientation in the sky, and therefore why multiple shells are launched together, in the hope that at least one bursts the right way up. Obviously, launching several of these bespoke shells at once would prove costly, but I think there's another factor at play as well, and that's the technical limitations of the shell itself. If you look closely at the Mickey pattern these shells produced, the ears are very close together, almost directly above the head, rather than offset to the sides as in the familiar Mickey pattern. To understand why this is, let's take a look at a cross-section of a shaped shell. Here's a cross-section of a typical star-shaped shell. You can see the desired pattern is replicated inside the shell by these small balls or stars. So Disney needed to get the Mickey pattern to fit into a circular space. This is quite difficult to do in the correct proportions, which is why the ears ended up here, in order to fit into the circular space of the shell. In order to get the ears to appear at the sides, there would effectively be three options. Firstly, the head part of the pattern could be made smaller, but this would look out of proportion to the ears and would burst more like three equally sized rings, certainly not a proper Mickey shape. Secondly, the entire pattern could be made smaller within the shell, but to do this the size of the stars would need to be reduced, resulting in a much smaller burst that would easily be lost in amongst other fireworks in the sky. The third option would have been to increase the overall diameter of the shell in order to accommodate the original pattern, with more space for the ears out to the sides, but this also wasn't very practical due to increased costs and safety factors associated with larger diameter shells. So in the end, Disney abandoned the idea of a Mickey pattern shell. But that doesn't mean you won't see Mickey-shaped fireworks at Disney. Instead, to recreate a hidden Mickey shape with fireworks, Disney will often launch three separate shells, one large shell and two smaller shells offset to the sides, so that when the three combine and simultaneously burst, they overlap to give the appearance of Mickey. This can be tricky to get the exact positioning in the sky of the three overlapping shells, especially considering wind factors. That's why on some pre-recorded promotional footage, Disney actually used CGI to generate a Mickey-shaped firework effect instead. These fireworks may look realistic, but they're actually computer generated. So there you have it. The only time Disney have used a true Mickey pattern fireworks shell was very briefly for a one-off show back in 2008. Were you lucky enough to see that show in person? I know I would have loved to have been there. Let me know in the comments. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing and enabling notifications to get notified whenever I upload a new video or go live. Thanks for watching.